What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Real Ones Canes podcast. He is Brandon O'Doy. Follow him on the socials at Brandon_O'Doy. I'm the Beast, Brian London. Follow me at Miami Radio Beast. We are recording this on a very rainy, thundery, stormy Thursday afternoon. Maybe that means something, that the storm has come and is a storm heading to Gainesville. I know the Hurricanes are heading to Gainesville this weekend. That's what we'll be talking about as number 19 plays in the Swamp, 3:30 against the Florida Gators. It is the big game in that time slot, Brandon. It is, as Larry Coker used to say, it is a double blimp game. All eyes will be on the Canes and the Gators, and people will be watching to see if the new look Miami Hurricanes with a new quarterback and a new running back and a new wide receiver and a bunch of additions all over the place, if they look any different than 2023. What do you think?
Well, they're obviously going to look a lot better. I mean, you have to like the prospects of bringing in a very highly touted quarterback prospect in Cam Ward. So this is going to be a new look University of Miami team. You should expect to see some fast-paced things in consideration to how the Hurricanes are going to want to play, football. Shannon Dawson is a guy that's been in college football for many years. He's second year into this system, installing it with different guys, but second year at Miami, understands kind of how he wants to play football. There's still some discussion internally about who the playmakers are going to be. They know they can count on Xavier Restrepo. They know they can count on Damian Martinez. They've all been there before, and obviously Cam Ward has the goods at quarterback. But they're going to be a little bit of a learning experiment and kind of a curve in consideration to who those third, fourth, and fifth guys are. Because if we know going into the game that Restrepo and Martinez and Cam are going to be the guys, so does the University of Florida, and so does every other opponent.
Hey, before we get into like specific matchups and guys and all this stuff, I want to take a step back and look macro for a moment, right? Because there's a few things I'm worried about as it relates to this game. We talk about the new look Miami Hurricanes, especially on offense with new personnel, and you wonder how good are they going to look and how ready they are with this being the first game, right? Because normally, you're scheduling a lesser opponent for game one, so you can work out the kinks. But here you are with some new guys. You've got the headset thing going on now, so it's a different way of communicating the plays. 85,000 people surrounding you, 3:30. It's going to be as hot as heck, right? You and I have talked about what kind of a sauna it will be in the Swamp. I'm just wondering if Miami has any room to work out the kinks, or like how it's going to look with all this new stuff going around. Because when I know they've been working through fall camp and through the summer and working together, but it's different against an opponent in a big-time stadium in a big-time game.
Yeah, and these coaches have to know that. So you have to, at some point as a fan, and I'm not specifically talking to you, but I'm talking to anybody who has that kind of rational line of thinking, meaning where do we get the margin for the learning curve that this team is going to need to gel? And the reality of the situation is you don't get it, because you come right into an SEC matchup on the road with a bunch of screaming fans in somewhat of a rivalry game. And you kind of have to perform from the word go. And any mistake, and we saw this, I believe, the last time Miami played Florida, there was an early mistake by the Canes, and those are hard to overcome. And they weren't even truly on the road then. It was more of a neutral site. This is an unforgiving environment. But the good thing is, because you went out and got a lot of guys who played a lot of football in the transfer portal, you're dealing with a lot of veteran guys who have a lot of snaps under their belt, and that's what you want to count on. I mean, you can count on one or two hands the guys that are really, truly inexperienced and haven't played very much college football, and there are not that many of them. So you've got to prepare, if you're Shannon Dawson and Lance Guidry in the offseason, that you've got to be so confident in what you're running, how you're scheming, that it's got to be something that you can do so well that you can walk right into the first game and do it. You cannot be still trying to figure stuff out and going out there and showing that at Florida. And the beautiful part about playing Florida all offseason is, you don't have a cupcake. You don't have a learning curve. You don't have time to figure things out. You've got to be sure. And so because you've had all off season to plan for this, and it is not a surprise, and you're not, figuring out who your quarterback is, you're not dealing with like a quarterback controversy or, a competition that's spilling into fall. A lot of things kind of don't have to be really considered. So this team should be ready. There's no excuse. Veteran coaches, veteran head coach, been there, done that players. This team should be ready to play, and so should Florida for that matter.
One of the things that I am kind of worried about, and looking at the other side of the football, the defense for the Miami Hurricanes, I feel great about the front, four, front six, if you're including two linebackers. It's the back end where things start to get a little hazy for me. Obviously, you feel good about Darryl Porter Jr. You feel good about Mish Powell. I think Damari Brown came into his own towards the end of the season. And then after that, I've got some question marks. And Florida's got some talented speed at wide receiver. All eyes will be on number 3 all afternoon. And before we even talk about him, I just want to get your thoughts on the back end for Miami and whether Canes fans should have some questions.
Well, there's some guys that have stuff to prove. I mean, Damari Brown played quite a bit last year. He's probably going to line up in the slot. Jadaeus Richard, the transfer from Vanderbilt, who's now in his second year in the program, will be on the outside with Porter on the opposite side of him. So there is some experience there. There's going to be a learning curve. You've got Mish Powell in the back end, and you should have Jalen from my alma mater, Riverwood High School, as the other starter at safety. Look out for OJ Federic, the new freshman.
I was gonna ask you about him, for the kid from St. Thomas Aquinas, because he's starting to come up a little bit more in conversations I've heard.
He's balling out. That's what I was told from behind the scenes. He's balling out. He's going to be the shocker of this defensive backfield. And it's going to be a situation where it's just a matter of time before he completes for a lot of playing time and even potentially a starting position. It just depends on how things shake out. Now, asking a true freshman to go into Gainesville with 85,000 strong and play a lot of football, I don't know how much of that he's going to do. I would probably expect to see him on specials and maybe even in some spot duty. The best thing to do with freshmen is put him in the position where they're most comfortable, where if things go funny or you need to audible or get out of stuff, that they know everything that they could possibly know, because this is an on-the-road environment. I don't want to say this is a must-win, but it would be good if we do win type of scenario for Miami. And so you just don't want to put guys in positions to fail. And there are a lot of other guys with a little bit more experience who could be used, but that's a name, OJ Federic, to keep in the back of your cap as far as someone who Miami coaches are excited about long term.
All right, so let's get into it. I think this game, a lot of it's going to come down to the play of the quarterbacks versus the other team's defense. On one side, Cam Ward has all the experience in the world. The biggest get in the in the transfer portal of any team, right? The number one guy out there, and he calls himself a gunslinger, and he is. But he's also had a propensity to throw interceptions. And the last thing that you can do at the Swamp against the Gators in front of that crowd is turn the ball over. It'll be a feeding frenzy for 85,000 people if you throw a pick. I'm worried about that. And on the other side, you got Graham Mertz. Now, granted, when he was at Wisconsin, he did turn the ball over, and he wasn't as accurate as he is. But last year, 72%, 20 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, as accurate as on target a passer as there was in the NCAA. Now, it didn't really turn itself into wins, but he played good football. Just your thoughts on the quarterback matchup here.
Well, they play offense and defense in football. So he did his job.
Right.
But, they're both two sides to the ball. With regard to Cam and with regard to quarterback play in general, Beast, you know how this goes. You go as far as your quarterback goes. There's guys who are playmakers and there are guys that are game managers. Miami has a playmaker for the first time in quite a while at quarterback, and you're expecting your quarterback to make plays. What are plays? Well, plays are, explosive, movements down the field, positive yard with the ball. And also when you are against the grain, when you're third and long, and when something is very unlikely or you need something to happen, when you're behind, you find a way to come up with positive outcomes. And that's what Miami needs out of Cam Ward. Now, what Cam has to realize is he's probably playing with more talent than he's ever played with. And so he's got to rely on some of that and not try to do too much. At Washington State, if he didn't do it, it wasn't going to get done. I believe he had one pretty good receiver, and then the rest of it was kind of difficult to come by. But he's got to learn to trust the guys that are out there playing with him and let them make plays, get the ball in their hands, be effective. For Mertz, second year in his system, he's under a very talented quarterback, offensive-minded coach in Billy Napier. So it's no surprise that his entire career looked different as a Florida Gator. And I expect him to look even better in year 2. That's why this game is not a gimme for a lot of college football analysts, because they're saying, look, if this guy was a disaster at Wisconsin, he comes and he looks pretty good in year 1. What do you think he's going to look like in year 2? And then they went out and got him a receiver. The issue they're going to have is at running back, where the depth has been challenged. And, the question will be in the trenches, where this game will ultimately be won. That's the key. We're talking about all these guys on the perimeter. That's cute. It's going to go down to the trenches, because can the ACC Miami Hurricanes match up with the SEC Florida Gators? Florida, the recruiting they've been doing and the guys that want to play in that league. And is it good enough? And we're going to find out in just a few short days.
Well, if you look at one side where the offensive line for Miami, you're returning 3 starters, and then you bring it in a couple of very good guys to complement them, including a center that's played a lot of football, and Zach Carpenter. They're going up against a defensive. Now, look, we will talk about Miami's amazing defensive line, which I think it is, but Florida's defensive front is no joke. They are experienced. They've played, I think Shannon Dawson said that, 3 guys have played 1,000 snaps. And I mean, Desmond Watson gets in the game and I want to run, or for me, waddle away. I mean, dude's 450 pounds listed.
I saw that today and I wondered if that was like accurate. Like, how can a guy be 449 pounds?
Well, whatever he weighs, I've watched him play. Dude can move at that weight. And here's what I know. They've played a lot of snaps at defensive front. And so Miami's offensive line is going to have their work cut out for them. But, conversely, Miami's defensive front has been put together pretty well. It's got a ton of experience there. And, you're hearing great things about Akeem Mesidor coming back from injury. Obviously, Ruben Bain taking the next step. And then you got guys that you can rotate in there at end, at Tyler Barron and Elijah Alston. And then, in the middle, I think you have a pretty decent crew with CJ Clark and Simeon Barrow, and some decent backups. I think Miami's defensive line could be one of the best that Florida sees this year. So that trench battle, it's going to be important in this one.
Very important. I think that's where the game is going to be won. Anybody in the Canes, fan sphere that's thinking this game is, Miami's just going to walk into Gainesville, blow these guys out and go home. Like, that ain't going to happen. You're going to have to find some sort of an ethos as a team, and you're going to have to figure out what the identity of this team is. And you probably need to do it before the first half is over. And so, Miami's going to try some things. Florida's going to try some things. And I think this game will go down to the fourth quarter. I think this is going to be decided late. I think Miami's going to have to get out of there with their shirts And I think it's going to be a situation because you got to understand there's desperation on both sides. I know that's not a word that fan bases like to hear, but at Florida, I would be willing to say the desperation is high. I was listening to a breakdown of their schedule, and essentially they have no chance of going to a bowl if they don't win all their home games.
It's Brandon, it's been ranked by most outlets as the toughest schedule in the country.
Right. So that schedule goes haywire if they lose this game. And they know that. There's very few people who go into a first game and they're like, man, we got to win this game. Because if we don't win this game, it just gets crazy from here. And that's the thing. Florida already knows that, and they've sat with that, and they've lived at that. The other thing is, I think everybody, and we haven't had the chance to really discuss this yet, but everybody has taken a look at what happened to Florida State. You know, all the offseason talk, all the acquisitions, everything you say, you got to play football, you know, and I bet no Florida State fan woke up and thought they'd lose to Georgia Tech. I bet there wasn't even a close fear of that.
No way.
I think that's sobering for everybody in this game. I think that's sobering for Miami. I think that's sobering for Florida. And I think fans should be, you know, kind of tempered by that. We don't know what's going to happen. And that's the best thing about college football. Because, hey, when the coin is tossed and the ball is kicked off, it's like, all right, let's see. It's my will against yours. Who wants it more?
You know, you talk about this game going to the fourth quarter, and I'm kind of thankful that Miami had. No, I don't like that. But I am thankful, though, that Miami has a senior kicker and Andy Borregales, who's been there and done that and been through some big games and made some big kicks. Missed a couple of kicks, but made most of his kicks. I don't want it to come down to a kick, but if he's being trotted out there, I feel better than if it was a freshman in his first game.
So it's cool to have a 4-year guy at that position, you know?
And then the other thing, you know, I'd like to have a good return game so that field position can help you out a little bit. I don't know if you're going to get that.
Never had it.
Yeah, well, they have. It's just not in the time you've been around.
I mean, not since I've been around. I've been around 12 years. I haven't seen
it. Yeah. I mean,
DJ Dallas was decent. For a little while, but
they've had guys that have been solid, just no game breakers. You know what? I'll take solid. A guy that's just gonna.
Benjamin is about the last guy that I can remember being pretty effective. Dorsett wasn't terrible. I think he took one or two back.
You know what I'm most worried about? One of those guys dropping the football. That's to me. In this type of game, every little thing. That's why Restrepo's
been on punt return because he doesn't drop anything.
Yeah.
He doesn't get you any yards, but he's going to make sure he fair catches that.
I will take all the fair catches that are done cleanly.
That's not University of Miami football.
I don't care.
There's no behavior.
Right.
That's not what this team is built. You're talking about the home of Devin Hester. He was just enshrined
in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, I know. I get it. And you know, I was somewhere this morning and I get some PT, and the PT is a huge therapist, is a huge Canes fan. And we were talking, and we both said like we'd love to just be overly confident about this game, but the way the last decade plus has gone, how can you be? I just don't know. I don't understand how a Canes fan, you would have to be literally just out of your mind driving up the turnpike, as I'm going to do tomorrow night, onto I-75 up to Gainesville, you know, feeling like this is a no-brainer.
Yeah, nobody's feeling like that. I have a question for you that's unrelated.
Oh, no.
If the game starts at 3:30, I've never covered a game in Gainesville, and I'm leaving the day of, what time do you think I need to leave?
5 a.m.
I was going to leave at 7. Wow, 5 a.m.?
Dude, I will tell you this. I'm staying in Ocala. It's an hour away. I want to be parked by 11:30. I'm leaving my hotel at like 8:30 because of game day traffic. And it's not just that. It's you know, try to find your way to the parking lot and try to find this, and good luck to you. It's going to be packed, man. It's an SEC environment, man. Yeah,
This is my first SEC game. I think. Is this my first? No, I've been to a Vanderbilt game. It's been a while.
That doesn't count.
That doesn't. I was not good at that. I went to Northwestern and they do that to us, but
yeah. Real quick, and then we'll take a break. The 2-minute timeout. It's not the 2-minute warning. Don't call it a 2-minute warning.
I've heard them talking about that. What's the
college football? Like college football, someone will come down and smack you if you call it a 2-minute warning. It's a 2-minute timeout. This is more clock usage that needs to be considered.
Oh, so at 2 minutes, there's a break.
There's a 2-minute warning. There's a 2-minute timeout now.
So it's a fake 2-minute warning that we're calling a 2-minute timeout.
Correct. In college football. But that now comes down to coaching operations, game day operations. Mario Cristobal's
both halves or just the first?
Yeah, both halves. And Mario Cristobal says he now has a time management coach, although he won't tell you who it is. So one wonders. But
I mean, didn't we all know that was probably going to happen?
I mean, yes. So, my question is...
I know what you're going to ask, and I'm not answering it. I am not answering that question. I know what you're going to ask.
Then I'm not asking.
You're going to say, if you have a coach, don't you have to listen to the coach? And I am not answering that. I will publicly let you know that question will not get answered today.
Okay. Then I'm not going to ask it. I'm just saying it's another thing to think about, right? Clock usage, clock management, time management, all of that stuff. It has not been the bastion of Mario Cristobal's coaching career.
I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Everybody improves. To be better, one must look in the mirror. Doesn't mean he has to tell anybody. One must look in the mirror, accept the things that he is and the things that he is not. And he must improve if he wants to go higher. This program has shown that in every facet. I expect time management of games and coaching just to be another one of those things that has to improve. And people are going to have those tough conversations, have had those tough conversations internally. We're probably not privy to it. I think you'll see big changes, but only time will tell.
All right, speaking of coaching, we have to talk about that. Plus something dumb you said last week that went viral, just all over the cyberwebs, and I have to make sure you
haven't even seen it.
You have to make sure. We have to make sure that you really meant what you said. We're gonna have to revisit that on the other side. We will take a break. You are listening to the Real Ones Canes podcast. Welcome back to the Real Ones Canes podcast. He is Brandon O'Doy. Follow him on X at Brandon_O'Doy. I'm the Beast, Brian London. Follow me at Miami Radio Beast. Follow the show at Real Ones Canes. Go subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening right now. And go to the YouTube page. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that thumbs up. Hit that bell. Notify when new videos are coming down. Now that this is the season, you're going to get all sorts of content going on. So make sure you keep it locked on the YouTube channel and the podcast page. Both of them, audio and video. All right, Brendan. Speaking of coaching, we left off last segment about coaching. I think really, if you want to zero it down to one kind of coaching matchup I'm looking forward towards, it's Lance Guidry handling what the Gators are probably going to do with their most explosive player in wide receiver Eugene Wilson out of Tampa. 5'10", 183, the sophomore. They're going to line him up everywhere. He'll be lined up outside. He'll be lined up in the backfield. He'll be used all over the place like the utility knife that he is. I'm looking forward to seeing how the Miami coaches handle that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you got to get the tackler. You got to get the ball to the ground, as they say on defense, when it comes to, number three. But at the end of the day, Miami can operate in a bend but don't break mode. I don't think that Canes fans want to hear that, but bend but don't break wins you this game, because you've got to allow Cam Ward and that offense to get rolling. And I think once they do, they'll be in good shape. But you cannot afford to give up explosive plays. You cannot afford to give up silly touchdowns where you're out of position, out of alignment. There's got to be good communication, and that's where practice sort of comes in, and leadership by guys like Powell, and we'll get a chance to see how good of a leader, how good of a field general he is. By the way, Kiko Mainoa, and he's been around a while. Wesley Saint's been around a while. You got some vets on that defense. The front guys, I mean, it's gap assignment and go get the football. But I'm not as concerned as you are as far as a lot of the sort of rudimentary things. I mean, this is still elite level college football. You got to coach, you got to tackle, you got to pass, you got to catch. I mean, it's just the fundamentals of the game. The question is, are our Joes better than your Jimmys? And so we got to figure that out. If coaching gets into the mix of this, and it probably will, then you're going to see some nuances. And we got to figure out who has the most nuances, whose team is bought into those nuances, and who can execute them at the highest level.
Oh, it's not X's and O's, it's Jimmy's and Joe's.
No, it's not old. It's real. It's relevant, and it's as old as water, because at the end of the day, if my guys are better than your guys, I don't have to coach that much.
Well, there's plenty of times I've seen a team go out there with the better roster on paper, and some coaching or lack thereof
you gotta be cohesive.
has cost a game.
You can't just run out there. But no, Jimmy's and Joe's matter.
Let's talk about this Miami coaching staff. A couple of new pieces. Obviously, they've added a lot of kind of backroom staff members. They've done a lot of stuff. Obviously, a time management coach. The one thing Mario Cristobal has is just a robust internal operation, right? And I feel a lot more confident, actually, as I've learned more about the culture and the operation and all of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes that we don't see necessarily even on game day. I feel a lot more confident about this Miami coaching staff heading into the season. Am I right on that?
I mean, I've not had any reason to really question this coaching staff in the past. I just didn't think they were talented enough at the right positions. And Georgia Tech game, you can say whatever you want. The game was won. You know what I mean? And so at the end of the day, I just think you upgraded. I think there was a talent problem in this program. It's been fixed. We think it's been fixed. Now, if these guys play like they're heralded to play, somebody's going to disappoint. But that's why you have depth. I mean, they went out and got a couple of guys at different positions. They poured it on kind of thick. So, I mean, I'm not as concerned, and never have been concerned about the coaching, more so concerned about the talent. And I think the talent level has finally gotten to a point where you can have expectations of coaches. Because, see, to me, if you don't have the guys, then all this coach stuff. I mean, Nick Saban always played with the best players, and he's heralded as the best coach. But, I wonder if I had the same players, how good would Alabama have been?
Well, I mean, the ultimate example is Larry Coker, right? I mean, he has the best team ever. Larry was a great guy and a really good offensive coordinator. That team basically made him the head coach because they didn't want anything to change. So they basically, they all went into the athletic director's office and said, just make Larry the head coach. We got this. Ed Reed, Joaquin Gonzalez, we got this. And they went and won every game.
Didn't quite go like that. That's
yes, it did. No,
I mean,
bro,
nobody just goes in and says,
yes,
hey,
I will tell you right now that a group of guys went into Paul D's office and said, if you don't make Larry the head coach, we will leave. And Paul D did not want Ed Reed to leave, or Joaquin Gonzalez, or anyone else that went into that office, and said, this sounds like a good idea.
I mean, I guess I'll buy it. I mean,
I was there, bro.
You were there.
I was embedded at that point in time.
I'll take your word for it, but at the end of the day, yeah, I mean, the coaching only comes into play during close games. I expect one, and you'll get a chance to see. You'll get a chance to see.
Which coach has the pressure on them in this game?
Napier, without question, he would say that.
Okay. By the way, these coaches,
Napier is an awesome dude. Like the times I've met him, it's a shame what's been allowed to happen. I think he should have given like a UCF or a, like, you know what I mean, an Indiana or Purdue a chance before jumping from, you know, where he was to Florida. But sometimes, like Manny Diaz, you got to take what's available. You know, timing is everything. So, and yeah, the money, yeah, but you don't get paid enough to be questioned the way he's been questioned. There's not enough money.
Listen, man,
pay me, for as nasty as people have been, you couldn't pay me enough. Like, there's no amount of money to have me constantly questioned, stressed out, constantly looking over my shoulder. There's not a dollar amount for my peace.
See, I'm different, man. I'll just give me the cash. I'll block the haters. I'm good. It's
not about just you. It's your wife. It's your children at school. It's you can't even turn on the internet. It's trust me, man. It's a different.
No. Listen, I totally understand it, and people can be over the top, especially with college football and fandom, right? There's only one sport that has it above college football when it comes to just obsessed, ridiculous fans, and that's international soccer. You go over to Europe and, there's death threats and all stuff like that. But
people will kill you over that.
All right, we have to talk about something. We have to discuss something. You're sitting down, right? Like you're sitting, you're comfortable. All right, you're good. So last week on the show, people can go find. You know what? I'll put it in. I'll put the link in the description. You said something that may or may not have made its way to around the cyberwebs. Not with your name on it. Not, no one really definitely took shots at you. But I've seen some things out there. People that may or may not have gotten whiffs of what you said. And for those of you who missed it, Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong, said the coach that loses this game will get fired. Maybe not right after the game, but at some point, season fired. Am I wrong in paraphrasing what you said?
I said that, but I said firings don't necessarily mean you lose your job. And I encourage you to go back because
now we're not okay.
No. Go look at the episode. If you're gonna quote it.
You did say that, but now we're playing semantics.
No, I'm not playing semantics. If you want to hold me to the fire to something, which I can always count on you to do, especially if I say something controversial, which I don't think is a controversial comment at all. I think these are two high performance, high expectation programs who have underachieved in the past 2 years by two coaches going into their third season. And I think the person who loses this game is in big trouble. I know for a fact that, and this has been well documented, Florida has to win this game. And if they don't, conversations begin about how long they're going to stay with Coach Napier. This is well documented. You don't need Brandon O'Doy to tell you that. But at the end of the day, the reason is because the consideration is that the rest of this schedule is unmanageable from a talent perspective. But that assumes that people are going to be who people think they are. It assumes Georgia's going to be who they think they are. It assumes Tennessee's going to be who they think they are. It assumes Texas A&M's going to be who they think they are. Like, a lot of stuff has to happen. I bring up Florida State. Nobody had on their bingo card Florida State going to Ireland and losing to Georgia Tech. Not that
Correct.
Georgia Tech's not a talented team. It's just this is not what the expectation was. Florida State was a big favorite in the game. But the games still have to be played. And so what I'm saying to you is that right now, as it stands, Florida has to look to this game as sort of a litmus test on what to expect for this season. Because you're going to lose to a Miami team that's basically been put together in 6 months. So how can you go against a Georgia team that brings back a lot from a team that only lost one time? How can you go to Tennessee That's, you know what I mean? Like, that's the conversation. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it's super logical. And on the Miami side, I said, well, a loss and a firing doesn't necessarily mean you lose your job. You just may not be as well resourced if you're Mario Cristobal as you are now, because the boosters have bought in. And for many years, Miami did not support the program at the level and the rate that they needed to do. So, you know, anybody calling those comments stupid or unfound or whatever, like, that's your opinion. I stated mine. But guess what? I made a lot of opinions and gave a lot of takes on this podcast last year. And guess what? I hit them all out of the park. I was right about Tyler Van Dyke. I was right about the win-loss record. I almost nailed it.
Yep.
And I was right about a lot of the things I said, because at the end of the day, I make the comments based on information that I know. I can't always discuss why I know it. I can't always talk about it, but I don't go on feeling. I am not a Miami Hurricane fan. I am not a Florida fan. I am a fan of the sport. I am a journalist. I am a scout. I am someone who's embedded in this culture. And the fact is, the person who loses this game is in big trouble. Now, if that's controversial, then so be it. But I mean, I think that that's a pretty well understood outcome of this game. And it's been set up like that by college football analysts who have much more prominence than me all through the off season. It's not a controversial comment in the least.
All right. You have properly defended your comments. I will give you the thumbs up on the way you just came across with how you defended those comments.
Thank you, Judge London. I rest my case.
All right. Before we get out of here, we need a couple of predictions. First, we will both predict what the result of this game will be. And then before we get out of here, I want to get you on the record as far as Miami win-loss and season predictions. So first, with this game, I'll start out with this game. I think it's going to be tight, especially early, as both teams feel themselves out, feel each other out, and you know, the atmosphere is going to be crazy. It's going to be ridiculous. It's going to be one of those games people are going to talk about. But in the end, I do think Miami is a better team. And right now the spread is about 2.5. Miami is favored. The over-under is about 54. I'm not quite sure it gets to the 54. I think Miami wins this one like 26-20. I think that's my prediction.
This is going to be a low-scoring game. This ain't going to get out of hand. If it does, then that would be interesting to me.
So what are your thoughts?
10 wins on the season. I think Florida
wait, about this game. Give me a score for this game, man.
I just said I agree with you. Low-scoring game in the 20s. Miami wins in the fourth quarter. I talked about it earlier. 10 wins on the season. Florida State doesn't look nearly as strong as I thought. And that's the floor. I said that all off season. I'm well on the record on that. I don't know why you're shaking your head. There's nothing new with me. If anything, I'm consistent. This is a 10-win season.
No, I'm shaking my head because you're Mr. Former big-time network news producer, and I'm going to go off script. I'm going to just forget the rundown.
You asked me two questions. I answered the second one first. Like, you are unhinged right now. And it's not even the first
I am unhinged.
Everything.
I am.
You were less nervous when Tyler Van Dyke was taking snaps in Coral Gables. Like, you got a real legit Heisman candidate. You got a real legit NFL prospect at multiple positions, and you're a nervous Nancy right now.
Yeah, man.
Unbelievable.
You know what? My wife might have to drive. I don't know if I can make the drive up to Gainesville.
You can't handle success.
You know what?
Cannot handle it.
My son has his license. I might let him drive, and I just might go in the back seat.
Driving? Wow, I'm getting.
Yeah, I know. It is crazy. All right, so you're going with 10-2.
I'm going with 10 wins. I don't know what the
okay. So right,
that could mean you can win your bowl game. I'm going with 10 wins.
All right. I'm also going with 10 wins. I believe they're going to make the first round of the playoff and lose in the first round of the playoff because it'll probably be on the road somewhere ridiculous. So that is my prediction, and I will say this. I don't know where the two losses are going to be, but one of them is going to piss a lot of people off because somewhere Whether it's that game at USF that you've been talking about, whether it's Manny Diaz, whether it's a Manny Diaz revenge game, whether it's a time change difference, body clock not right out in California.
Oh, Berkeley.
Yes. So somewhere there's going to be a loss where people are going to lose. Hey, by the way, your hometown team, Georgia Tech, don't look too bad either.
But you know what? Only reason I'm not worried about that is because there would never be a more focused team and coaching staff in that Georgia Tech league. I can guarantee you Georgia Tech is going to get every ounce. And they got a week 0 game. So now they're a week out of getting a chance to prepare. Trust me, that I'm not concerned about that game at all. Okay. There will be retribution. There will be a price to pay if you're Georgia Tech. And I love Atlanta. Georgia Tech is the closest college to my house. We won a championship in 1990. I say we because I cheered for them. I'll never forget. It was a great time. They had a black quarterback, which was unusual back then. I was in the 4th grade. But at the end of the day, Georgia Tech, Miami's coming and they want their bike back. And that ain't gonna be. And I shout out to all my friends at Georgia Tech, Cody Collins, Aaron Joe. They've treated Hotbed well, but I'm not going to be the one to say that they can win that game, even at home. There's going to be a mad group of Canes coming into that Bobby Dodd. I'm telling you, they're coming with revenge on their minds.
The last time Miami played at Florida, I was on the sideline still. It was a night game. Miami, it was against the Tim Tebow team. Yeah, it should be. It was against the Tim Tebow team. The 2 lasting memories were Sean Spence sacking Tim Tebow. And the other one was late in the game. Florida had it won, almost no time left, and they went for this bogus field goal. And as Randy Shannon ran towards midfield to meet Urban Meyer after the game, he did not shake his hand. And that became something. So that was my last memories of the Swamp. We'll see if this one ends up being a better post-game experience than that one was. So we will go with that.
And now I'm mad because I got to leave at 5 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, well, better safe than sorry. The worst thing that should happen is you get there a little bit early and you take in the environment. You just, you just suck it up a little bit, a little SEC atmosphere.
What do you think immediate parking is going to be? Is it going to be?
Well, I got my pass. It's, I'm not going to tell the world where I'm parking, but, it's a lot. They have us not too far. Not close, but not far. So there's that.
If we can get there.
If we can get there. Yeah, the University of Florida did send out an alert, and it's like, you have to click on this to have the proper Waze directions because there's so many streets shut down during game day that if you just follow Waze or Maps or whatever you got, Google, you're not going to get to where you need to be. You got to click this link. You got to do this. So I'm getting ready for it. Yeah. All right, man. I will see you up there, and, let's hope that we're coming back and having a positive podcast next week, man.
We'll have some post-game thoughts.
Yeah, for sure. All right, everybody. We will check you next time. Have a good one on the Real Ones Games podcast. Peace.